Hello, everyone. This is the Ophthalmology Business Podcast, where we help you develop your ideal practice with the help of other doctors and experts. Topics we cover include marketing, management, leadership, recruitment, HR, mindsets, and more. I'm Ryan Davies, Digital Marketing Advisor at Equa Marketing, and happy to be one of the co-hosts of this podcast. Every listener of the podcast is welcome to join the Ophthalmology Business Academy. Go to www.obacademy.org and sign up to join. The membership is on us. It's our gift to you, full of great resources to help you grow your practice. Today, I am excited to talk to Naren and founder of the Ophthalmology Business Academy, an ophthalmology marketing consultant. He's the CEO of Equa Marketing, about the three biggest marketing mistakes ophthalmology practice owners make. Naren, thanks for joining us here. I'd love to get a little bit more from you on your background. I know you've been doing this for, many, many years, well over a decade at this stage, helping ophthalmology practices succeed in the world of digital marketing. Tell us a little bit more.
Absolutely. Like I said, I'm the founder of Equa Marketing and the Ophthalmology Business Academy. We have been helping ophthalmology practices for 18 years. And the thing that I'm most proud of is even today, some of our very first clients we signed up 14, 15 years ago are still with us. So the reason they stay with us year after year is at the end of the day, every healthcare practice needs new patients. And the key is, how do you get them at the most cost-effective way? So every practice owner, you have choices. You can run Google ads. You can run social media ads. You can use SEO, which is where you show up when people type in certain search phrases on Google for free. You can even get free traffic from social media. What I have found is SEO has this unique thing where A, somebody else can do it for you as long as they know what they're doing. And B, from a cost standpoint, it is the lowest cost way to get new patients. So if you were to compare the cost of a Google Ads patient versus the cost of an SEO patient, the Google Ads patient, let's say you're spending $5,000. A good SEO program, you can get the same results for the $1,000. So instead of spending $5,000 a month for 10 years, you're spending $1,000 a month for 10 years. So of course, that turns into hundreds of thousands of dollars in extra profit for the owner of the practice. So it's a very strong way to get new patients. So I think that might be why 95% of our clients never leave us. And that's what I like. It's the fact that, it's not just, we know them for 1 year or 2 years, we know them for a lifetime. The only time we lose clients is either they are bought by like a large, private equity play, or they retire. Those are the only two instances when we typically lose clients.
Yeah. And it's just amazing. I mean, that is what marketing is, right? It's an ROI play in terms of the money that I'm putting out. Am I getting what's my multiplier on that coming back in terms of new patients? So in the marketing world, that's kind of unheard of. Most marketing companies, again, they stay for 1 or 2 years, then they go for a new branding and a new fresh everything and try something new. So to have that kind of loyalty is incredible. Because of that, you're definitely an expert in this area, and you recognize a lot of the things that people do right, but even more so, you recognize a lot of the things that people do wrong. So in your opinion, what are you seeing, maybe let's go with the top 3 mistakes made by ophthalmology practice owners in their digital marketing efforts that you've seen over the last year, what you saw in 2023 that really held them back from their success or growth?
Yeah, I think that's a good place to start, right? Because if you want to be successful, maybe this first thing we all need to do is to not make the common mistakes everybody makes, because just by not making those mistakes, we won't pay the price of those mistakes. So the top 3 mistakes, let me just list them down and then perhaps we can talk about them. The very first mistake is not really having a clear understanding of how people buy, how people go about finding an ophthalmologist, how they choose an ophthalmologist. Because if you don't know how they go about making a decision whether to come to you or not, then how are you going to optimize for that decision? How are you going to position yourself to succeed so that they're choosing you versus somebody else, your competition? So that's the first mistake I see practice owners make. And unfortunately or fortunately, with technology, the way we do things continues to change. I mean, only a few years ago, we all hailed a cab, and now if you ask my young kids, they're like, what is a cab? And they don't even have the concept of a cab and standing in the middle of the road and waving for it. It's just something, it's like foreign to them. Same thing with how people do things online, how people make decisions. So that's why understanding the buyer's journey is really important. The second thing is, Google made $237 billion last year. So that's just Google Ads. So if that was a country, it would be like richer than 150 countries in the world, meaning they make so much money. And the way they make so much money is they make SEO really, really hard. So not everyone knows how to be one of the few websites that get most of the free traffic. So it's almost like getting into medical school, right? Like, look at the general population. What percentages of kids end up getting into medical school? Is it 99%? No, it's more like 5%. Why? Because it's not easy to pass all the hoops and get to that level, and most people just fall off before they can get there. So it's the same thing here. It's really, really, really hard because Google makes so much money by when you pay them Google Ads money. So they make SEO really hard. So, do you know how to be one of the few sites that can get all the free traffic? Because 5% of sites get 95% of the free traffic. So do you know how to be one of the 5% of the sites that's getting 95% of the free traffic? Most practice owners don't know it. It's almost by design. Google designed it in a way where 95% of you will fail. So you have to give Google a lot of money for ads. The last mistake I see practice owners making is okay, you understand the buyer's journey, you have optimized for it, you understand SEO, you are in the top 5%, but still the phone experience. Are you converting all those phone calls into booked appointments, or are you missing a lot of those phone calls from converting into new patients? How is that? And a lot of doctors have no idea how well they're doing on this. They assume it's going well, but there's no data. It's just based on information from the person who's answering the phone. It's like asking my 10-year-old son, I mean, by the way, my kids all grown up, how did you do on math? I'm sure he'll say I did great. Of course, you need to look at his report card, you need to look at his exam paper. That's when you really know what's going on. So a lot of practice owners have no idea how they're doing with the phone, and just because they have no way of tracking it.
I think that's a great breakdown of those three steps. I really kind of want to dive into each of those. I think that because they all deserve a little bit more in terms of how you're going to make those mistakes go away and make 2024 and beyond, the best year in terms of growth and success. Starting with the buyer's journey, because I think that is really, again, it is changed. It changes, annually. But when we look at, going back 2 decades ago to a few years ago to today, that ophthalmology buyer's journey is quite different. So what is today's ophthalmology buyer's journey?
Yeah, absolutely. You're 100% right. I mean, go back 30 years, we all used yellow pages. I'm sure those of us who are old enough know what that is. We all had a book. We called it the phone book, and that's kind of in the middle of the house next to the fixed line phone. And you need something, you go up there, there'll be a chair next to you. You just sit down, you flip through it, you go to the O for ophthalmology, you go to the O section, you look up ophthalmology. They'll be all listed. Few of them will have big ads, so you're probably going to look at the big ads, and you pick somebody and you call them and you go see them, right? That's the way the world used to work. But today, especially since Google came along, we can get information in seconds. The minute you start typing OPTHA, Google knows that you're looking for an ophthalmologist, and it'll even suggest ophthalmologist near me, ophthalmologist city name, and you just pick one of those search terms, you start researching. So today, the buyer's journey starts with Google. So 91% of the market share when it comes to search is on Google. And people today, they want to learn about the solution, and also they want to learn about their options both at the same time. Meaning, maybe they heard about diabetes and the impact it might have on our eyes, and maybe they have diabetes, and they start researching the topic. And as they're researching, they're also discovering who can help them with that. Even if they get referrals today, nobody goes to just the doctor they're referred. They really want to make sure the person they're going to is an expert, or you specialize in LASIK surgery, so they want to make sure that you know what you're doing, right? I mean, eye is, we only have 2 sets of eyes. You can't replace them. It's not like even a finger. Okay, you can function with 9 fingers. I mean, if you don't have your eyes, then that's not going to be fun life, right? So it's really, really near and dear to people. So they really want to make sure they're doing their research and finding the right person. So step 1 is you need to show up when they're doing the research, right? Imagine they're researching and you don't show up, but your competition does. And there are 2 ways to show up. You can show up for free. That's called SEO. Or you can show up by buying an ad. Like I mentioned, ads are a lot more expensive because people don't trust them. It's like, those of us who watch TV with ads, we know we don't watch the TV program for the ads, we watch the TV program for the TV program. Same way, people who use Google, they don't use it for the Google ads. They use it to see what the organic results are, what the natural results are, what is Google recommending. So that's the second step. So step one is you want to show up, and ideally for free as part of SEO. Step two is they go to a page. We call it the landing page. And is that landing page optimized? Is that landing page set up in a way that people are more likely to pick up the phone and call you or not? Do you have videos? Do you have reviews? What are you doing to convince people to come see you? So that's the second part. So I think understanding all of this, and the last piece is of course the phone experience. So understanding these three steps: am I ranking on Google? How many times am I ranking on Google? Number two is when people end up on my relevant page for, let's say, glaucoma, is that page compelling for somebody to want to pick up the phone and call? And finally, how is the phone experience? So do you understand it? Is your website in the top 5% in all these things, or you're not?
Talk to us about that. That's a great place to kind of to go into the next one, that being in the top 5%, right? What's the importance of being in the top 5%, and what does that mean to your practice and being able to grow and get the success that you're looking for?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? Because Google made $237 billion, like I alluded to in my introductory remarks, Google has every incentive to make SEO hard, or really, really, really hard. Because remember, those who rank for free don't pay Google a cent. So Google has every incentive to make it hard. The way they do it is they look at 200 odd things. You can organize them in 6 buckets. And then these rules keep changing literally 10 times a day. So just because you ranked yesterday doesn't mean you're going to rank today, because if some of those 10 changes negatively impact your website, you're going to go down in ranking. So you have to keep earning it. It's like getting into Mount Sinai, or like, let's say, the Stanford Medical School, like every day, right? Because it's really, really hard, but you just have to keep crossing that chasm every day, crossing that bridge every day, that dangerous, impossible bridge to cross. If you don't, then you lose. So that's really the whole point of this. So you want to make sure that you as a practice owner is in that top 5%. If you're not in the top 5%, then you're not going to have the advantage these practices, the 5% practices, have, which is your cost of acquiring a new patient would be a fraction of the cost of acquiring a new patient for everybody else.
Yeah, that really is an unfair advantage, like you said. It really puts you in a position to succeed and get a new influx of patients at just a fraction of the cost and effort that everybody else has to go through to make it work for you. You also touched on call conversion, and you said, you got to know the information. You got to kind of understand where you're coming from in that sense. What does that mean, and what do practice owners need to know to be successful and judge their call conversion rates?
Yeah, so call conversion is the percentage of new patients who end up booking an appointment with your practice. So if you're getting 100 new patient calls, you need to know what percentage of them actually booked an appointment, right? The reason is it doesn't matter, what's the saying? It doesn't matter how much money you make, it's how much money you keep, right? It's kind of the same thing. It doesn't matter how many phone calls you get from marketing, but how many of them actually turn into new patients for you. Because imagine you're getting 100 new patient calls, and each patient is worth, let's say, $2,000, and you're only keeping 20%. That means 100 times 2,000 should be $200,000 worth of new patients, but 20% of that is only $40,000. So you're getting $200,000 coming in, but you're keeping 40,000 and you're wasting or throwing away 160,000. I'm kind of exaggerating. The average ophthalmology practice, and this is true for most healthcare, is only booking 1 out of 3 new patients. So the average conversion rate is 33%. So the big problem here is doctors don't know what their conversion rate is. It's like sending your kids to school and never getting a report card, never getting an exam back. I mean, imagine sending your kids to a school like that. You have no idea if the kid is getting 79 or 29 or 99. You have no idea, because there's no report card. There's no, would you ever send your kid to that kind of a school? You won't, because you want your kids to know and you to know how well they are doing in different subjects. I mean, schools go even a step further, like even exams, they have exams periodically, and they'll tell you, okay, for this chapter, your son is doing really well, but that chapter, he's struggling. Why don't we help him a bit? Because maybe that's not his cup of tea. So now you can do something, right? The minute you have information. But the practice owners don't have this information. They don't know what their conversion rate is. So one of the things we do for our clients is we listen to calls and we record calls and we provide those insights. So every call is tracked. But the unfortunate thing is, don't ask your kid how well he's doing with math, right? You never do that, right? You want the exam paper or the report card. Same way, don't ask your team how well they're answering the phone. It's just like, it's the dumbest question you could ever ask, but that's what a lot of practice owners do. Instead, listen to 100 calls. It is painful. It'll take 20 hours, or find somebody else, a third party that's willing to listen to 100 calls, and then tell you, okay, this is 29.3% is the conversion. It has to be precise. It has to be based on analyzing those 100 calls. And then once you know what the conversion rate is, then you can do something. If your kid is getting 40 marks for calculus, maybe get him a tutor. Maybe have that person work on the chapters he's struggling with. Maybe next exam he's getting 50, the following he's getting 60, right? It's not rocket science. I mean, you all got to medical school. I mean, I'm sure you didn't ace every subject in every grade. I'm sure some of you probably did, but many of us do struggle with something. And when we struggle, we lean in, we find out where things are not working, and we improve on it. That's what you want for conversion as well. You want to lean in, you want to find out, where you're struggling, and then you need to figure out a way to, improve on it.
It's perfect. And you talked as well about SEO. You talked about the importance of being able to be found in that, again, getting that unfair advantage, ranking in the top 5%. What does that mean? Like, how many keywords do you need to rank for to be kind of considered that top 5%? And how do you make that happen?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have been doing this for 18 years, as all of our audience knows, and we talked about at the top of this presentation, on top of this podcast. So what I have found is, if you are ranking for 100 or more keywords and phrases, meaning I type those keywords and phrases into Google, you are in the top 10 results. You are on page 1 for 100 or more keywords. Typically, that's a good indicator that you are in the top 5%. Of course, it doesn't stop there. Like, we have customers who rank for 900 keywords, 1,500 keywords. Over time, that number grows from 100 to even more. So instead of being in the top 5%, you can get into the top 4%, top 2%, top 1%, top 0.5%. You can move up and up and up and up. There's no limit. It's like golf. Like, there's no like, oh, well, you can only be in the top 100. No, you can be number one in the world. There is somebody who's number one in the world at any given time, right? So there's no limit to how far up you can move in these rankings. And the higher the rank, the more money you make. I mean, look at the money the number one player makes versus the number 200th player makes, right? It's a massive difference. So the higher you move up in your rankings, the better off you are. So if you're ranking for 100 or more keywords, you are in the top 5%. That means you're at least getting 95% of the traffic. You are in that 5% club who's getting 95% of the benefit. But that's my benchmark. So I tell all my clients, before end of year 1, you should rank for 100 or more keywords on page 1 of Google. How do you know you're ranking? Look at Google Analytics. That's what we do. Google Analytics is Google's tool. So we never use any third parties, because we don't care what other people think. We just want to know what Google thinks. If Google is telling us you're ranking for 100 or more keywords, and Google will tell us, here is a keyword, ophthalmologist, Phoenix, Arizona, and 925 people typed it in the month of January, and your average position is 3, meaning you are on page 1 and you are showing up on average in position number 3. That's what you want. You want those kinds of keywords, 100 of them ranking. So let me flip it back to you, Ryan. You asked the second question. You said, okay, fine. How do I get into the top 5%? You are a marketing advisor. You work with lots of practices. You know what to look for to see. It's like, the kids who have a high chance of getting into Stanford and those who don't, right? Typically, they'll have a good SAT score. Typically, they will, have amazing GPAs. Typically, they will have, I'm talking about undergrad, right? Good extracurricular activities, amazing interviews. They have check. I mean, you can see there's some good chance of this kid getting in. I mean, if a kid gets 1580 out of 1600 for SAT and does all the other things we're talking about, there's a pretty decent chance every university in the world will want them, just because they are in such an elite group. They have aced everything group, right? Same thing here. So why don't you talk about, by the way, the two founders of Google met at Stanford. So I guess they modeled how do they eliminate 95% of the practices got from getting free traffic from how Stanford does it, because that's kind of their model. So talk about how can somebody get into the top 5%, and what are the things they need to do really well in to get into that top 5%.
Absolutely, and I guess that's exactly what I love to do is find out where you are today and what effort it's going to take, what the plan is, the roadmap to do that. But from that standpoint, as you mentioned, somebody's always number one. Somebody's going to be at the top. Somebody, there's always room to get there and to grow, and it's just the amount of effort it's going to take. But basically, just like you mentioned with getting into Stanford, you've got this report card with a bunch of areas you have to tick, or, I guess a checklist of everything you need to do. Same thing to get into that top 5% of Google. You've got to run through your checklist. So that is things like, do you have original content on your page that showcases your expertise, your authority, and your trustworthiness on every page on your site? Are you acing your Google Lighthouse score? So again, you talk about, we care what Google Google says in their tools. So Google Lighthouse is their developer tool that determines how technically proficient is your site. Is it fully accessible? Are you following best practices? Are you set up for the right SEO things in terms of all of your headings and everything that you need to have there, your meta tags? So are you acing your Google Lighthouse score? So within that, there's another report card you have to ace, right? So as you mentioned, it's not easy to get in the top 5%. You've got to ace everything. And that's not so across your Google Lighthouse report card, are you acing all the elements there? Do you have NAP consistency? Your name, address, and phone number, is it consistent everywhere that you appear? Do you have quality external backlinks that are linking into your site? Not just a high number of them, but they're actually a high quality number of them that are coming from reputable places. All of these things add up. And again, you've got to go check. Yes, I've got all of that. If you say, yes, I'm great in my NAP consistency and I'm great with my Google Eat, I'm showing expertise. I've got a lot of great high quality reviews, but boy, my Lighthouse scores are terrible. It performs really slowly. It's not a good performing site. You don't get in, right? And unlike Stanford, where once you've done all of those things and you're in, and now you're in and now you have to focus on your school there. You have to do this every day with Google. Every day you have to have your Lighthouse scores. Every day you have to make sure your backlinks are good. You've got great reviews coming in, all of those types of things to make sure you get in and stay in that top 5%. So like you mentioned, they make over $200 billion because they don't make it easy for you to be successful in that space. That is exactly what what we want to make sure is when I take a look at sites, you want to make sure that you're acing that report card from end to end and that you're doing all of the right things.
Yeah, so can I make a suggestion? Have people book a marketing strategy meeting with you, Ryan? Maybe you can talk more about what is the meeting. See, I feel like,
Absolutely.
I built a business with 250 people. I started from nothing. Literally, not a single person gave me. I tried to get money from a bank, and they said to give you $25,000, we need your firstborn child and 300 pages of documents. Right? I'm like, forget it. So I tried to figure out how to build a business without depending on outsiders. And one of the lessons I learned is, you need to know where you stand at any given moment.
That's
And
right.
once you know where you stand, then you can do something to get to the next step. Once you get to the next step, then you can do something to get to the next step. I really think getting into the top 5%, ranking for 100 keywords is an amazing next step for any practice owner, because you have that you went to medical school, what the unfair advantage does to your life, does to your career. So why not have that unfair advantage? I'm not saying stop there. I'm not saying stop at 5%, but get there within 12 months. Once you're then get to 4%, 2%, keep moving up. So talk about, like, if somebody wants to figure out, okay, I want to get to the top 5%, I want to master buyer's journey, I want to master SEO, I want to know where I stand, right? Because if you don't know where you stand, you can't create a plan on how do you get to the top 5%. So can you talk about what do you do with the marketing strategy meeting exactly, and how will this help them figure out where they stand and figure out like how they can get there hopefully within 12 months?
Absolutely, yeah. So I think that's a great segue. It's exactly, if we're talking about fixing the mistakes from 2023 and building something going forward in 2024, as you mentioned, you got to know where you are right now, and that's what a marketing strategy review does. It gives you a foundation to understand Where are you today? What are you doing right? Where is your online presence? How are you doing in all of these categories that we talked about? Your NAP score, your original content score, your Google Eats score, your Lighthouse scores, all of these things. We break that down and understand how are you doing that in comparison to your competition. So where are you ranking? Where are you being found? Where aren't you being found? Where are the areas for improvement? And then I put together a plan for you as well. And it's very granular, right? When you listen to this podcast, you've already spent the time right now to listen because you want to improve. You want to make this your best year yet, next year better, and the next year better. If you've given this time, this MSM, what it does, the marketing strategy meeting, is it brings you forward to really take that to the next level because it's granular. It's not just a generic, hey, here's the things you need to do, but here's actually what you're doing and here's how you can do it better. So we sit down and spend time. I go through and do all the pre-research for you, get all those numbers that Naren was talking about, and then we sit down and we make it so that it applies to you, right? Directly to you. What's the plan? Where are you today? Where do you want to go? What's realistic expectations to get there? And how are we going to create a plan so that you can be successful moving forward? So definitely, yeah, I would say it's a great invitation. Take the time, spend an hour. You've already spent time listening to the podcast so you can be successful and grow. Take it to that next level and really apply what we're talking about here directly to you with that marketing strategy meeting.
And the link is obacademy.org/MSM/Ryan. We'll put it on the show notes as well, and we'll put it in the email, obacademy.org/MSM/Ryan.
And even if you have like a simple question, you're not ready for the full hour yet, but you're like, hey, you know what? Maybe I just need to find out like the first steps or what do I do? You can even text or call me at 204-898-0528. That's my personal number, same one that my wife has and kids have and all that kind of stuff. So definitely, if you want to reach out and get connected and find out what your next steps are, that's a great place to start. But I would recommend, really go into it. You've given your time already to listen and to make your practice better. Get the information directly that applies to you and set yourself up for success moving forward here. I really appreciate it.
What's the number again, Ryan?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's 204-898-0528. So you can call or text directly, or again, use the link in the show notes or obacademy.org/MSM/Ryan. And happy to meet with you and do that research and apply everything that we've talked about here today directly to you. So that's great. Thanks, Naren. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Ryan. I really enjoyed our conversation. Just to recap, the 3 biggest mistakes ophthalmology practice owners make with regards to digital marketing are not understanding and optimizing ophthalmology buyer's journey, not knowing how to get into the top 5% of SEO rankings because the top 5% get 95% of the free traffic, not maximizing call conversions, not even knowing what their call conversion rate is.
Yep.
So if you can overcome these challenges and hopefully that blueprint that you will get by doing the marketing strategy meeting, both where you stand and what you need to do to get there, I think would be a great place to kind of start and change 2024 and make it your best year yet from a marketing perspective.
Absolutely. With that, I think that's a great place to leave it for today. Thanks, Naren, for all this amazing information and for joining us today to talk about the 3 biggest mistakes ophthalmology practice owners make. I think we're setting ourselves up for a year of success here in 2024, and we appreciate very much that you were able to join us here today. So thanks very much for that. I also want to take a moment to thank our listeners. We appreciate each and every one of you. If you like our podcast, please kindly share it with your friends and colleagues on social media. Please don't forget to write a review on iTunes or Google Play. It's your reviews that help other doctors and practice owners find us and unlock their potential in their practice. So until we meet again, I'm wishing everyone an amazing week ahead. Thanks so much for listening. I'm Ryan Davies signing off. Take care.